Welcome. My name is Chris with Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library, and I'm joined this evening by Chrissy and Shadriq. Hi, Chrissy and Shadriq. How are you?
Hi, doing well.
Good evening.
They're going to be leading our presentation here shortly. We're very excited. This is From the Archives, using Freedmen's Bureau records for African American family research. And this is part of Archives Awareness Week that we are now in the middle of. It runs July 11th to July 17th. And we have a landing page with lots of information and resources. We invite you to go check it out at hcplc.org/archivesawareness. And also, this program is presented in partnership with the City of Tampa's Archive Awareness Week, which is also happening at the moment. We have a link on our landing page to their archives, so we encourage you to go there and check out all of the great records that they have and all the great exhibits that are happening throughout the City of Tampa. Also, before I hand things over to Shadriq and Chrissy, I want to let you know that there is a handout. You should see a handout section, and in there is a PDF that you can download during the program. It has a lot of additional resources that they've put together for you, so we invite you to check that out as well. And now it's my pleasure to hand things over to Chrissy and Shadriq for their program. Hi, everybody.
Okay, and we're going to start off with the book shout out. The Freedmen's Bureau, Reconstructing the American South After Civil War by Paul Cimbala.
All right. So first, let's talk about what exactly the Freedmen's Bureau was. Established by the War Department in 1865 and officially known as the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, the Freedmen's Bureau was launched to undertake the relief efforts in the South during Reconstruction following the Civil War. It offered a variety of social and legal services, including the issuance of food and clothing, operating hospitals, locating family members, promoting education, legalizing marriages, providing employment, investigating racial conflicts, helping with land settlement, and working with African American servicemen and their heirs to secure back pay, bounty payments, and pensions. The Bureau lasted from 1865 to 1872.
Getting started. First, the significance of the Freedmen's Bureau records. How to find them, where they're located, when to use them. Next, we'll look at the ProQuest African American Heritage Database and FamilySearch database, digital resources for Freedmen's records. Then we'll look at the Freedmen's Bureau microfilm housed at the Robert W. Saunders Senior Public Library. And lastly, we'll provide viewers with the opportunity to ask questions about today's material.
All right, so let's talk about accessing the records. The Freedmen's Bank and also the Freedmen's Bureau records can be accessed digitally through the ProQuest African American Heritage Database. The Bureau records are found through the FamilySearch database. Both are located at www.hcplc.org/research/genealogy. The Freedmen's Bureau microfilm can be accessed at the African American History and Genealogy Library, which is located inside the Robert W. Saunders Senior Public Library.
Using the records. When should one use the Freedmen's Bureau as a resource? Well, Freedmen's Bureau is more for intermediate researchers. It's not really recommended for absolute beginners. Beginners might want to hold off until they become more used to reading and reviewing historic records, because otherwise you would be searching, going through a lot of bureaucratic paperwork and not even skimming the surface. So when also to use the Freedmen's Bureau as a resource, you know exactly who you're looking for during this time period and want to find or confirm additional information. You've traced your tree back to the 1870 census and need help breaking through the brick wall. Got to get over the brick wall. And you're trying to find extended family groups or last residents of your ancestors pre-emancipation.
All right, so here we are on the library's website. I'm going to go ahead and get things started talking about digital research. Okay, as I said, we're going to look at two databases today. The first one is the ProQuest African American Heritage Database. As we said, from the library webpage, you just go to Learning and Research, and then Let me move that out of the way. You just scroll down to where it says genealogy and history, and scroll further down, and you'll see where all of our genealogy databases are located. We have quite a variety, and the one we're going to look at first is the African American Heritage Database. Take note that this is also where the FamilySearch database is located, and we're going to look at that in just a few minutes. So go ahead and click there. All right, so a little bit about this database. ProQuest African American Heritage is a groundbreaking digital resource exclusively devoted to African American family history research. This collection was created in partnership with leading African American genealogists and recognized leaders in the genealogical information to develop a comprehensive mix of resources, records, tools, specifically pertaining to African American family research. Primary sources are devoted specifically to African American family history, including census records, vital records, freedmen and slave records, church records, legal records, and so much more. So just a brief overview. So from the top of the page, this is the home page. You can go to search their various collections. Then is the Afrogenius community, which is like a social networking site and message boards for those interested in African American genealogical research. There's Black Genesis, which is a state-by-state resource guide, and then a reference, how-to, and a frequently asked questions section. From the top of the page, there's home, there's the search. You can browse the various collections as well as genealogy publications and the community page. Over to the right, it'll keep track of your search history during your session. There's a section called My Notebook where you can save things that you've searched for to come back and either reference them or print them, etc. And also a help page. So let's go ahead and get started searching the collection. So notice down here, you can search a specific collection. They have birth, marriage, and death records, federal census record, Freedmen's Bank, military, and records of slaves and freed persons of color. Let's go ahead and click on the Freedmen's Bank. All right. So at this point, I just want to distinguish the difference between the Freedmen's Bank and the Freedmen's Bureau. They're closely related, but two different things. The Freedmen's Bank refers to the Freedmen's Savings and Trust, which was associated with the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bank records have records of depositors who utilize the services of the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Bank, separate from the Bureau records, which is where you would find like applications for service, various legal correspondences, marriage records, things like that. The good thing about the Freedmen's Bank records, though, is that it can give you a lot of unique information, particularly if you look at reference records that are right after the Civil War, which I'll start with and give you an example. So here you are doing a basic search. You can search by last name, and I'm going to search a common last name, the name Jackson. Of course, the more, with any research, the more information you have, the easier your search will be. But I'm going to keep things simple right now and just search a last name, since I'm not really looking for any particular person right now. For application year, I'm going to select 1865. You can look for specific Freedmen's Bank locations that they have here. The only one in Florida was in Tallahassee, but I'm just going to leave it at all, and let's see what we get. So when you click search, all your results will be displayed right in front of you, last name to first name. It'll list the last name, first name of a person whose name may turn up based on what you search for. Then it will list the applicant name. Sometimes the applicant name may be different than the person names you search. That just means that this person's name also appears on the application of someone else. So it'll list the applicant name, then the branch state, branch city, the application year, and any military info if applicable. which is very valuable if you have ancestors who may have fought like in the Civil War or other wars at that point. So, for example, let's take a look at this one. This is the record for James Jackson from Louisville, Kentucky, 1865. So this is what the record looks like. You'll notice at the top, it'll give you a roll of corresponding microfilm. Again, these are the bank records for microfilm, not to be confused with the bureau records, which is what we actually have in stock at the library. So let's see. Last name Jackson, first name James. Again, applicant name, everything you saw on the previous search page. I'll go ahead and add it to my notebook for reference later. And then there's also, if you have trouble reading the script, there's a transcription at the bottom of the page that'll give you the general info. So let's see what it says about this. It's a record for James Jackson. Let's see the date of the application. Looks like that says November 9th, 1865 in this case. One interesting thing here, and why I specifically chose the 1865 record, was because the earlier records of the Bureau or the bank, again, the bank only lasted from 1865 to 1874. So most of those early records, they will list the name of the master or mistress of the plantation where the person may have lived, which can be very helpful. As we mentioned, a lot of times African Americans have trouble crossing what they call the 1870 brick wall. That refers to the fact that the 1870 census was the first census after the Civil War, and it was the first time that African Americans would be counted as citizens and not as property. So a lot of times people can get up to 1870, but it can be harder to go beyond that. And that's where Freedmen's Bank and Freedmen's Bureau records can come in to help you because you can find out a little bit of information about like what plantation your ancestor may have been on. Sometimes when you try to find records of slaves, it may also help to kind of look at the genealogy of the plantation owner's family as well for more information. Some slaves would often have their plantation owner's last name as their name because it also lists the name of master as a Jackson here as well. Let's see, the plantation would have been in Lexington, Kentucky. Lists his height and complexion. Let's see, he's 5'1". This is black. It lists his parent. It says Henry Jackson. He doesn't list any children, so he may not have had children at that time. Let's see, and as well as his regiment, and since this man was in the military. And let's see, his current residence, Louisville, and his occupation was a farmer. It also gives some descriptive information of the man. Again, if you have trouble reading the script, you can scroll down. It says he has a scar on thumb and middle finger on left hand. Just some interesting fact to note. Let's see, and also it says $115 would have been deposited. Let's see, another name of the depositor was William H. Goddard. It does not say who this William H. Goddard is in relation to Mr. Jackson, however. And again, it lists his military info as Company K, 123rd Regiment. And so, as I noted, I did add it to my notebook. Let's see, so if you go to the My Notebook option, like I said, it'll show everything that you saved from your session, and it will give you the option to print it, download it, email it to yourself, etc. And so let's go back and let's change year. Let's say move ahead a little further. 1872. Again, you see a lot more names because a lot more people would have been using this by that point. And so let's pick out another one. Okay, so this is Abigail Jackson. This deposit record is from June 21st, 1872. Let's see, this is from New Bern, North Carolina. Let's see, residence is listed as Broad Street. She's about 30. Describes her complexion as very light. Um, the complexion information is interesting. Sometimes you may be able to discern if possibly a person may have been, biracial or not, which if they were, that can also lead you again to find a little bit more about their genealogy and their family circumstances. Lists her husband, Eli Jackson, and children, William Allen, who is 17 weeks old. No additional comments on that particular record. And it will allow you to browse the entire register page where you can find information about any others who would have been registered at that time. So that's a pretty quick overview of the African American Heritage Database. As I said, there are several other collections on this database, so be sure to go and check those out. Now I'm going to head over to FamilySearch. This is the FamilySearch homepage. Like I said, you access it the same way you get to the other database through the Learning, Research, and Genealogy section on the library's website. Fun thing about FamilySearch, if you click on search, it'll take you to their research wiki, and you can search by place, but you can also search by topic. And so I'm going to just show you African American genealogy has its own wiki, and it gives you a lot of unique genealogical features about family name changes, slavery research, Freedmen's Bank and Freedmen's Bureau records, and other guidelines for African American genealogy. There's even a state by state guide. I just wanted to note that FamilySearch is similar to Ancestry in that it's one of our larger genealogy databases. It has literally hundreds of thousands of records, international records. It is funded by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. They are heavily invested in genealogy, so all of this is funded by them. But it's a really great wiki resource, and you can actually search state by state. So for example, and if you look at Florida, you can look at what record collections are unique to Florida. So like Freedmen's Bank records and Freedmen's Bureau records. And so if you search that specific collection, a search box will appear. And again, you can search a last name or first name, etc. You can search even by film number if you know a specific microfilm roll that you're looking for. There are also several thousands images for each collection. All right. So we click search. The good thing about the Freedmen's Bureau records, if you are interested in those, we do have the microfilm at the library. But if you want to kind of check first online, the rolls of film that we have correspond to what you would also find online. So you would just click here. Once you do a search, if you find a name, it looks a little different, but it basically kind of the same function as the ProQuest database. It will give you kind of an overview of what's on the document, like names, dates, etc., locations. And if you click, it'll kind of tell you what this particular document is. It says military correspondence. If we look closer, we can see that it seems to be a register of names. Let's see, if you look here at the top, let's see, this tells you District of Columbia, Freedmen's Bureau Field Office Records, 1863 to 1872, Roll 21. Let's see, it says it's a register of people arriving at Freedmen's Village, January 1st, 1867 through June 27th, 1868. Let's see, so this will be under the DC record file. But anyway, so like I said, that's a register of names. Not too much to see on this particular one, but again, it does give you the option to print, to download. There are tools that allow you to adjust the image or invert the image at your will. And again, that's from FamilySearch. Now, I access that through the wiki. You don't have to do. This is the FamilySearch homepage. So you can actually start just doing a search for the record. I'd also like to point out that there's the family tree that you can put together, a memories feature. With FamilySearch, you do have to create an account to use it. It is free. You may want to keep your library card handy, but it is free to create an account. But you do have to have one to do like regular research with FamilySearch. But anyway, excuse me. If you click search records, then you can just go directly to finding a collection. For example, you just type in Freedmen's, and then all the various Freedmen records that would come up. Again, you can browse the images. For example, if you're looking at a particular city as well, it'll tell you what's on that roll. And this is kind of what you would see, and you just be able to scroll through it. This is a record from the field offices of the Freedmen's Bureau. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that overview of kind of accessing these records digitally. I know it's a lot of information to take in, but I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy, and she's going to tell you a bit more about accessing the Freedmen's Bureau on Microfilm.
Thank you, Shedrick. That was a wonderful presentation. All right, we're going to talk about microfilm. And digital versus analog is a matter of preference, really. And the best way to compare it is a digital research is like a ride on the Concorde. It's fast and it gets you there, whereas microfilm research is more like a road trip. It's longer with more to see, and the people who prefer this format like to review the content of the film just so they can get an idea of the time and place to understand the history, because they feel it's necessary to their research, or it's just it's history buffs who enjoy digging into the past. Now, why microfilm? Microfilm is not as archaic as you think. Microfilm is important because it serves as a preservation tool for recorded history. It helps preserve our most important documents and images so future generations can have access to the same information. It's a cost-effective way to preserve your most important documents, books, photos, and more. Microfilm and microfilm reader scanner and/or scanners have been created with standards amongst manufacturers allowing for continual access. So the machinery doesn't have to be constantly updated. So I could use a microfilm machine from like the 70s to the future. It will never change. It will never get updated. Microfilm does not take up a lot of space, making it much easier to use than large volumes of printed materials. At the library, the microfilm cabinet holds 11 drawers of the collection, each drawer containing 78 to 80 rolls of film, a total of 835 rolls. In a disaster, microfilm is typically more salvageable than paper records and maybe more accessible than digital records, depending on the disaster type. Under adequate storage conditions, microfilm will last for 500 years. So it's actually a very forgiving format and very resilient too. Microfilm can be duplicated or scanned, essential in disaster recovery plan implementation. Microfilming the Freedmen's Bureau. Okay, the National Archives microfilmed these records in 2 stages. In 1970, they selected records of the Bureau's DC headquarters and records from assistant commissioners, superintendents of education, and records from the Bureau that were microfilmed pertain mainly to reports, correspondence, and education items related to the history of the Bureau and to the education of the African Americans, not necessarily to genealogy. So in other words, people were coming to the, traveling all the way to Washington, D.C. to the National Archives to do genealogical research from the 1970s to 1990s, and their research only came out with bureaucratic stuff until the year 2000. In the year 2000, the National Archives began microfilming all the records of the Freedmen's Bureau to become available nationwide. And the project was made possible by congressional passage of the Freedmen's Bureau Preservation Act of 2000, which was signed by President Clinton on November 6, 2000. Now keep in mind, just because records have not been microfilmed or transcribed does not mean they don't exist. The Freedmen's Bureau project is an example of this. Volunteers teamed up with the Smithsonian's Transcription Center to transcribe records, and as a result of this tireless effort of thousands, the names of nearly 1.8 million men, women, and children have surfaced and now are searchable online. Microfilm research. Okay. The Freedmen's Bureau microfilm can be accessed at the African American History and Genealogical Library located inside the Robert W. Saunders Senior Public Library. We carry the 1865 to 1872 records, the year when the Bureau was active, in the Bureau records, marriage records that span from 1861 to 1869. Records of the assistant commissioners contain a variety of correspondence and records about various subjects, mostly bureaucratic, office to office, agent to agent, and so on. And the records of the field offices contain a variety of records, including reports of persons and articles hired, lists of people in industrial schools and freedmen's homes, school reports, list of orphan children, and registers of rations issued, contracts, and immense correspondence about various matters. The field office records, these are going to have the most information. And the microfilm collection we have at the library consists of 13 out of 15 states. As of yet, we do not have Texas and Virginia. Okay, the ViewScan 4. We have the ViewScan 4 at the library. All you really need to know is that when you are viewing the film on the screen, there are 3 tabs in the toolbar that will allow you access to 3 modes of operation: browsing, cropping, and the file. Okay, these tabs are going to give you access to any and all functions for viewing, editing, cropping, saving, and printing the pages, including saving to a USB drive and Google Drive if you have a Gmail account. Okay, this is not a very great picture, but I did the best I could. This is what a microfilm image would look like on the screen. And all the way to the top, looking at the top left of the screen, Chris, yeah, perfect. If you can get the cursor up there, you'll see the 3 tabs: the file, the browse, and the cropping. And then then a little bit at the center to the end, we've got like the camera features to help zoom in and out, to focus, you know, the controls for brightness, contrast, sharpness. You can customize positive to negative viewing. So whatever it takes to make what you're looking at more legible to help you with your research, you've got the means right here in front of you. And at the bottom of the screen, right under Lucky Lindbergh here, you will find the controls to help advance or rewind the film. And actually, it's really on spot. You would think that on the computer and using your mouse and clicking on it, it would be a delay. No, it's very quick, it's very fast, and it's very reliable. All right, let's begin. So gather as much information that you can from the documents you have. Observe if the birthplace is different than residence in 1870. Note your ancestor's surname and the surnames around them. And select a roll of film from the microfilm cabinet by year, state, and which set of records. Now, here in the photograph, that is the actual microfilm drawer at the Saunders branch. So that's where you're going to be picking your film from. Okay, the contents. All righty. Now, when you take the box of film, now this is a picture of the box where the film is contained in. And you'll see from each box of film right there where the cursor's at, the microfilm series number, and in this case we have it's microfilm series 1869, the state selected, which is the state of Florida. I've got the Florida roll right here, and then also the roll number will also be on the box too. So we're going to be looking at roll number 14. Now, if you were to look at the box on the side, you'll see that the label extends all the way to the side of the box. And it's the contents of everything that's going to be on this film. Now, it looks kind of small and crowded, but don't worry, you will see this again when you're looking at the film on the screen. Loading the film. Loading the film on this reader is very simple and user-friendly. The diagram that you see is on the machine to help guide you, and you'll be a pro in no time. Here's a quick video demonstration to show how it's done. All right, viewing the film. Remember when I said digital versus analog is a matter of preference, and unlike the supersonic jet results of digital research, microfilm research is more like a road trip? Okay, now you're going to see what I mean. Viewing the film, once you've loaded the film and advanced to the beginning, this will be the first frame you'll see. It will have the microfilm series and number at the top, and the state with the dates 1865 to 1872. An introduction of the records you're about to view and an overview of the Bureau's history and organization will be next. The next frame here is the history of the Bureau, specifically from the state you selected, along with the names of the agents and the role they played in the Bureau. And here is the Bureau in Florida, as you see. The next is record description. Now, this section reveals more about the letters, endorsements, issuance, and other records you will come across on this roll. The Bureau didn't keep everything in order like you think they might have, so the National Archives did a lot of legwork organizing the collection before microfilming. The contents will tell you exactly what are on this particular roll of film. And here it is. Right before you get to the records, you'll find the contents. Unlike the label on the microfilm's box, you can actually read and comprehend the text laid out in longhand. Always double check the content to make sure you have the right roll of film. Now, up on the upper left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the roll, what roll number, a description, and the dates. We have roll 14, and the description of the offices of staff officers with the dates. So we've got claims agents, disbursing officer, surgeon-in-chief with the dates. And then below with the subordinate field offices, you'll see the locations of field offices in the state of Florida along with the correspondence listed and the dates. All right, and so it begins. Keep in mind your research is now going to be linear and in order according to those contents. Every now and then you'll see a target page, so think of this as like a chapter page in a book. It just separates the content. And here's a record I found on this roll. This is a reposting for a $100 claim for a bounty by veteran John Smith, Private, Company C, 33rd Regiment of the United States Colored Troops. A bounty used in this term is a payment for military services. It's not a reward for a wanted person. It's not the quicker picker-upper. It's payment for a military service. This document dated March 31st, 1870 is from the Offices of Staff Officers to Claims Agent Captain J.K. Durkee, Register of Bounty Claimants of the Jacksonville, Florida Field Office. Now, to the average person, this is just an old letter, but to the descendants of John Smith, this might be a clue to his military career and what happened to him, taking, the research to the next level. So in summary, the Freedmen Bureau's records are available online and on microfilm at the Robert W. Saunders Senior Branch. Stop by for assistance with your African American family research. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who has some things to mention before we get to your questions.
That was a wonderful presentation, Chrissy and Shadriq. Here on screen, you see, as Chrissy just mentioned, the Saunders Library. That's the address and location. And that's how the building looks in case you're driving around saying, where is it? And you can also call the number there on the screen if you're having difficulty finding it. But now we are at our, well, actually, before I mention that, I want to say one more time, in the handout section, there is that PDF that Shadriq and Chrissy put together. Please, if you want, download it. There's some great resources in there that they put together for you. But here we are at the Q&A segment. So please now submit your questions and we'll have some answers for you. All right, let's see. We've got some coming in here. Someone wants to know, I guess this is about the Bureau shutting down. Now, if it shut down in 1872, why are there records going back to 1870, on to 1874? Sorry.
Okay, I'll have to go ahead and take that one. That's a great question. So as we mentioned, the Freedmen's Bureau only lasted from 1865 to 1872. Any additional records, if you're seeing records going to 1874, those are probably the last records from the Freedmen's Bank. Like I said, Freedmen's Bank and the Bureau are closely related, but they're two separate entities. So the bank lasted 1865 to 1874, the Bureau just up until 1872. And so any last depositors' records would have been finalized in 1874 for the bank.
All right, thank you. Someone is asking, they're saying they had knowledge that a grandparent was adopted, but no known record of their birth parents. Is it possible to even go back to find the family before taking on the name of his adopted family? Is there any tips you can give to research something like that?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good question. It varies by state. That much I do know as far as how much information is released. Some states, adoption records are unfortunately sealed permanently. Some states may have like a certain time period, after which you can access those. So I would say definitely, if you happen to know where your parent was adopted, I would say look and see what that state's adoption and privacy laws are first, and then you can kind of take it from there. A unconventional answer, I would say, if you take an ancestry DNA test, you might find out, I've had people who've taken those kind of tests and, who've had like a relative or even themselves who was adopted, and then they'll find like another blood relative just through those kind of ancestry DNA tests. So that's a possibility. Like I said, that's a little bit unconventional. Don't know if you want to do that, but that's a possibility. I don't know if Chrissy, if you had anything to add.
I was thinking the CDC also carries records too. That's also very reliable for genealogy research. You would have there are instructions on the CDC webpage, and it's just a matter of writing them a letter, and they can, if they have the records, they will contact you back.
Oh. Well, those were excellent recommendations. Thank you. Someone is asking if land acquisition records are included in the Florida records.
Land acquisitions, they might. I think you would probably have a better chance of finding them on digitally than on the microfilm. Actually, yeah, I think you'd have better chances with that one too, because I think that's where it's going to be relieved. I don't think I have that on microfilm, but right. I think that would be more something that would be found more recent, and it would be documented. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say they want to start digitally. I know a lot of the records that we have on microfilm are like office of the commissioner, like the field office records. There may be a few court records. I know there are some like court registrar records on FamilySearch, but I know we have like the field records on microfilm, as well as like marriage records and things like that.
Okay. All right, well, we have time for just a few more questions. Someone is asking, why did the Bureau shut down?
Oh, okay, that's another good question. It kind of has to do with like the politics of the time, as far as dealing with like Reconstruction and things like that. Let me see, it's shut down 1872. So yeah, I think it was like a lot of the political strife of the time. There was definitely a lot of pushback with Reconstruction. A lot of the Southerners probably wanted the Union Army presence out of the South, and that kind of affected a lot of the rebuilding of the South. And then the Bureau shut down 1872, the bank in 1874, and then if you know a little bit about the history, the Compromise of 1877 took place, officially ending Reconstruction and thus ending any efforts to, rebuild the South or better the lives or enrich the lives of African Americans of that time, unfortunately.
Thank you. All right, we have one question that just came in, and then we'll wrap up. Someone wants to know, are there any records that trace back to the slave ships?
I'm sure there are, but I don't recall ever running into any. How about you, Shedrick?
Not for the Freedmen's Bureau. Again, like the Freedmen's Bureau started after the Civil War, so 1865 onward. So the Freedmen's Bureau wouldn't have any of those records. It's possible to find. It's a bit challenging, but there are possibly some records out there. Maybe some historical societies. A good resource may be the African American Historical and Genealogical Society. There is a Tampa chapter. They actually used to meet at the Saunders Library pre-COVID. See if we can get some of their contact information, but they would be, I'm sure if you Google them, you can probably find, some local contacts, but it's the African American Genealogical and Historical Society, correct? The AGS. But they would probably be a good resource to find out information if there are any. Because,
Okay.
yeah, a lot of times ships wouldn't have like a, since African Americans were being transported as cargo, you wouldn't have a lot of specific information on the individuals who came aboard.
All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you. This was a fantastic presentation. So many great resources available in our library system, and especially at the Robert W. Saunders Senior Public Library. Now we're going to, So if you'd like to contact the library, you can call us directly at 813-273-3652, or you can go online at hdplc.org/contact. And also, like I mentioned at the top, we have a landing page about Archives Awareness Week. So if you want to go to hdplc.org/archives awareness, you can find out about some programming and links and resources there as well. And of course, you can find out, access our events calendar on our website as well at hdplc.org/events. And with that, I again say thank you to Shadriq and Chrissy for this great program. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you very soon. Have a great night.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.